Hello, science enthusiasts. I'm Jason Zakowski.
And I'm Chris Zakowski.
We're the pet parents of Bunsen, Beaker, Bernoulli, and Ginger,
the science animals on social media.
If you love science
and you love pets,
you've come to the right spot. So put on your safety glasses
and hold on to your tail.
This is the Science Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Science Podcast. We hope you're happy and healthy out there. This is episode 26 of season 7. Chris, how does it feel to be back at school in the swing of things?
It feels awesome and amazing. I made it through the week. It was a short week. Monday was a holiday for us. And I said to my grade 12s, I'm like, woohoo! We made it through the week. And they were a little bit tired. But At that time, I wasn't tired. By the end of the day, though, I gave all my energy to my last block class. And then I sat down and I had a few moments of, that was a week. That was a wrap.
Yeah. It takes a lot of energy to be a teacher at any level because you have to, the kids know when you're low energy. And if you want a low energy class, you get that by being a low energy teacher. And I know both you and I, we are very animated when we teach, and it does make it as a long day, but it's a fun day too.
Yeah, it does. It takes a lot of effort. No, it doesn't. I get my energy from the kids. So when they're happy, I'm happy. But you're right. When you're just sometimes grinding through, you were telling me about some concept that you were teaching and you just said, oof, I just had to get through it. And now that they've had some practice, they feel better.
Yeah, sometimes teaching the why is a big stretch at the highest levels of math and science because the kids they're just like, well, how does this apply to anything I need to know? And it's because it's a puzzle, right? High levels of math are just puzzles. It's weight training for your brain. And really at the highest levels of science too, it's critical thinking and weight training for your brain. So when we send these kids off to university, they have pretty strong muscles from all of that weight training. So I do get why some kids are like, why do we have to do this? How does this relate to anything? And I say, you know what? If you go to the gym and you do some of those weightlifting exercises, chances are you'll never, ever have to lift weight like that in your life, but it makes all of your muscles stronger. So when you do something similar, it's easier. They don't like that.
Oh,
they don't like that analogy. All right. What's on the show this week? We've got 2 really good science articles. The first one is about how the common cold may protect folks from COVID-19 infections, or at least the severity of infections. I found that to be interesting, so I'd like to get into it. And our science article about pets is about canine obesity. So
that just makes me think of how our first dog, our first golden retriever, really liked food. And when we took her to the vet, they said, oof, she is overweight and you need to lay off the treats. But they also said that retrievers really can pack on the pounds.
Yeah.
So It'll be interesting to talk about that article and dog obesity.
Yeah. All right, let's get to it. There's no time like
science time.
This week in science news, let's take a look at some really interesting data about the common cold and COVID-19. I just mentioned the new school year is starting, and with the new school year, you and I are both going to get sick soon.
No, I refuse.
Okay.
Jason, I never get sick. You absolutely will get whatever the little gremlins have.
Yeah, there's a horrible, awful cold coming within the next 2 months. I'm going to get something from the kids. I just always do. And that's because you and I interact with hundreds and hundreds of kids every day. And they're high school kids. So you'd think they'd be not gross, but they are gross because they're kids. And I know you're a little bit less susceptible to it than I am, but I have a man cold, I'm sure, coming down the pipe. This study examined whether recent respiratory virus infections, specifically the rhinovirus, that's the cause of the common cold, influence the risk and severity of getting SARS-CoV-2 infections. This comes from Human Epidemiology and the Response to SARS-CoV-2, HEROES study. The period it was looked at was between May 2020 and February 2021. and nearly 1,400 US households participated, giving up nasal swabs. So this was happening during the pandemic, obviously.
So the new analysis that they have put forth on this study, they focused on more than 1,000 participants, and they compared the coronavirus positive and to the coronavirus negative cases within 30 days before a household's first COVID infection. Jason, interestingly, the main findings were having a cold in the previous month led to about a 50% lower risk of contracting SARS-CoV-2 compared with those without a cold in that same period. So there was a reduced risk of infection by having a cold in the previous month.
Huge, 50%. That's massive.
That's massive. And then also participants who did have a recent cold showed about a tenfold lower SARS-CoV-2 viral load. So like you said, a milder COVID-19 infection while they were infected, or a COVID-19 response. So that lower viral load equaled reduced severity as the immune system actually has less virus to fight off.
Now, some of the possible mechanisms for this are pretty interesting. We have airway defense proteins in our body, and when you get rhinovirus or the cold, that infection triggers the production of these proteins in our airways. Those proteins they're part of our immune system. They help fight off infection, and they appear to stay active. That kind of pre-primes your body to protect against SARS-CoV-2 if it gets in there shortly after. Now, this is the most important. Now, this is the most interesting thing I thought. This is the most interesting part of it because I have a lot of anecdotal reporting on this from all of my nieces and nephews. It's about kids versus adults. So kids had a higher activation of these airway defense proteins after a cold. And way more importantly, kids were also way more likely to catch colds, contributing to their higher rates of milder or asymptomatic COVID-19 infections. Do you remember this during the pandemic? Like they always said kids can get COVID, obviously, but they weren't getting as sick as the adults, or like they would be in a household with COVID and they would be asymptomatic when they didn't have any symptoms.
And I always found that interesting. And even that played out in the schools. That's why our kids could continue going to schools unless there was an active COVID-19 case in a classroom. Then the whole class went home to isolate.
And the anecdotal reporting is we're in a different phase of our life than my siblings because Adam just moved out. So we're empty nesters. Not going to lie. This last week has been better, but like the first couple of weeks, it was super weird knowing he had moved away. But my siblings have little kids and they are constantly sick. Like all the time we meet up with them, at least 2 or 3 of them have some sniffy, terrible cold. They're always have these awful colds.
I know. It's terrible.
But then I wonder if they felt the same way about us when we had, like, when Duncan was little or when Adam was little. Maybe Adam and Duncan were always sick too.
They weren't sick. Our kids weren't sick.
Okay.
Maybe they were. You're probably right, Jason. I probably myself, I don't like being sick, so I just say no. And my body's okay. And I
think when your kid projectile vomits across the living room, you block it from your memory. It's not something you want to remember. And then you just remember that never happened. It's easier not to remember. It's easier not to remember the projectile vomiting across the living room. That happened, Chris. Our kids have done that.
I know, but we should have a warning in case someone listening has a sensitive stomach. Sorry.
We should have a warning about this is what's going to happen if you have kids. Lots of projectile vomiting.
It also happens with dogs.
That's true.
True.
Oh, yeah. Dogs are.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Okay. But anyways, Chris, what's the implications of this?
So the broader implications are something called cross protection, which suggests that common colds may actually train the immune system to mount a faster response against new pathogens, including SARS-CoV-2. And that is really important from a public health perspective. It helped explain why children often experience milder COVID-19 outcomes compared to adults. And interestingly, you can potentially apply this with the understanding of the airway defense priming system that could inform strategies to boost innate immunity against respiratory viruses that are beyond COVID-19. So it's like training for later.
Before people listening start to schlep their kids all over the place and make them hang out with kids who have colds to potentially protect them from COVID.
Like a chickenpox party, Jay?
Yeah, exactly. That was a terrible idea back in the day. Anyways, this was an observational study. Like they pointed out in the limitations of the study. It doesn't show causation. It just shows association. It only focused on one respiratory virus, that was rhinovirus, and it didn't look at others like influenza or RSV. And this occurred early in the pandemic. This was before vaccinations occurred. So it would be really interesting to see what happened as the vaccines started to roll out, if the data was just noise or it actually was legit there.
And I'm a data person, so I would love to see that data collection to be able to compare it with the different variants of COVID-19 and in comparison to the pre-vaccination era, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, I thought it was just a fun little study. I'm always gently teasing my siblings that their kids are always sick and they always make me sick every time we hang out. But maybe in a roundabout way, they're protecting me from COVID-19. That's science news for this week. This week in Pet Science, we're going to talk about canine obesity and food motivation. The stat in the study, we were talking about this with Marla Smith, who is Chesney, the service Roddy, about the fact that 50% of US dogs are overweight or obese. And that seems like such a shocking amount of dogs.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the most common canine health concerns, is that obesity, because it impacts, like I said to Marla, I said, you are what you eat. And unfortunately, having that extra weight or that obesity causes canine health concerns.
Yeah, a whole host of them. Higher levels of diabetes, arthritis. You have those joint issues, cardiovascular disease, skin problems. And the lifespan studies show that overweight dogs may live 2.5 years less than dogs at an ideal weight. Oof. We try to keep our dogs really lean, and we get comments on that. Like, Beaker is like a lean golden retriever. She is. She's so strong and so athletic, but she is lean. Like, there's not an ounce of fat on that girl.
And the vet was so impressed because how I mentioned earlier about Callan and the pitfalls of a retriever getting some junk in the trunk. I know. And I
miss that dog.
I know. And reading and learning that they may have 2.5 years less life than dogs at the ideal weight. But you know what? We got the weight off of her. Like, she was chonky for a little bit of time until we were made aware that she has a little bit too much love handles to handle.
Yeah. But for a while, Duncan was giving her 2 breakfasts.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And that
our oldest son Duncan would help with the dog, and Adam was a toddler when he would have been, by the time Callan got Chonky, like what, 4? He wasn't in any position to start feeding the dog anyways. It's not his fault.
No. But yeah, so when I took Beaker, I take Bunsen and Bernoulli, of course, to the vet, I always ask, how are their weight? We want to make sure that they are healthy weight so that they can live their best life.
Yeah. And Bernoulli and Bunsen, though they look burly, they are trim too. Like, there's no chonk on those guys at all.
No.
Yeah. Bernoulli is, would you remember? Let me start again. Like, after Bunsen's surgery, do you remember feeling like how muscly he is? He's like he was a bodybuilder under all that fur.
Yeah. And he lost 10 pounds overnight with his prototapeworm cyst. It's like weight loss surgery, but not. Yeah. And it was weird because I'm like, it's weird that he's gaining weight because we had not changed his diet or anything. And we should have clued in that, just a second here, he shouldn't weigh this much.
Well, it was only about 7 pounds more, but still we weren't changing anything. You're right. That was odd. Anyways, the data from the study comes from owner surveys, their feeding practices, the perceptions of their body weight and food motivation, and veterinarian medical records, including body condition scores, or BCSs. All of this was published in the American Journal of Veterinary Research. And it comes from a massive cohort of dogs. So this is one of those good studies where they actually have huge amounts of animals, 50,000 dogs. The DAP cohort, one of the largest canine aging studies worldwide.
So you know what makes a difference? Breed and genetics.
Yeah, I get it.
Yep. The sporting group dogs like retrievers and spaniels and setters, they showed a 10% higher food motivation than average. And having that interest in food means that they're hungry. And Labrador retrievers in particular are already known to have a genetic mutation. It's called the POMC gene mutation, and that's linked to them not feeling full, right? No. It's an impaired signals that they're like, oh, I'm not satisfied. And so they have a higher risk of obesity.
Yeah, interestingly enough, they are finding that similar gene mutation in humans who are obese. That you just never feel full. You're hungry all the time. That's like me. I'm hungry all the time.
You do enjoy food.
Yeah. I gotta watch what I eat a bit.
And the reason why we see it is because retrievers and spaniels are among the most common U.S. breeds. Because there's so many of them, the breed predisposition has a major population level effect.
Dogs were more food motivated, possibly reflecting reduced exercise opportunities and being more bored. Multi-dog households increased food motivation. We're a multi-dog household, and some owners often resort to free feeding or just leaving a bunch of food available. That may cause competition. And then you have scavenging and overeating and all that stuff.
I've heard that too, though. Families that say, oh, we had 6 boys, and if you didn't eat and scarf down your food, you didn't get any food.
Yeah, you had to eat quickly or you got nothing. Yes.
Did that happen in your household? You have 2 boys
and
2 girls.
Well, I don't know. I forget. I'd have to talk to my dad. Maybe he wouldn't even remember. Like when I was a teenager, I ate a lot. Like teenage boys. Well, we had Adam and he would go through 4 liters of milk in 2 days. It was unbelievable. And
yeah, and Duncan didn't eat as much. So weird.
No, that's true. He did not. He ate a lot of Chewy bars.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Through 60 Chewy bars in a week. Yeah, I don't know. That you're onto something though. Like a bunch of teenage boys in the same house. You better get your food or you're getting scraps.
So Jason, you might be wondering how the body condition scoring, or that BCS, works. And it's on a 1 to 9 scale with 5 as ideal. So what the veterinarian does is they feel the ribs, the hips, and the waist. And it's a key clinical tool, but it's actually underused in practice. So dogs that are involved in sports or working activities, their owners were more likely to know about and apply BCS, which highlights how owner engagement and education drive better monitoring and maybe better food choices for their dogs.
Now, if the vet does realize the dog's overweight and suggests weight management, it's not going to work if the owners don't follow it, because the dog eats what you feed it. And if you're supposed to feed it a bit different and you don't, that's really on you, not the dog. And there's sometimes miscommunication between vets and owners. That's sometimes a frequent barrier. Also, breeds like retrievers may need stricter portion controls or individualized feeding regimens. Like they may not be able to follow what's on the bag of food.
That's what I noticed too, because we would feed her, Callan, what was on the bag, but she was chonky. So we had to not follow those instructions.
And it's not like she didn't get a lot of exercise. Like I took that dog. I did everything with Callan. She was my Bunsen before there was Bunsen. Like we went on walks through the creek. We went on snowshoeing, and I don't think I snowshoed back then. I skied with her all the time.
You had cross country skis. Yeah.
I skied with her all the time. Yeah. Exercise enrichment and that structured feeding, which means you have a meal at 6 and you have a meal at a certain time of the day and you actually measure the portions. You don't eyeball it. Those are key strategies. Another
thing is using food puzzles.
Yeah.
So the dog works for their food.
Yeah, all our
They
dogs
like it.
love to do. Yeah, all our dogs love food puzzles. They eat really fast, but we have them on not kibble. They're on a raw food diet. So, you know how there's a feeding dish so they eat slower.
Hmm.
I've seen that for some dogs, but that would be gross for the food we give them.
But Gord does it with Doc. He has the
Yes.
feeding dish and he has raw food.
Oh, interesting. Maybe we can try it. We just have to wash it every time.
They lick their bowls clean, Jay.
There's still bacteria on there.
There is. You should wash your dog's bowls.
Yes, you should.
So, if we're talking about weight management, there is a broader context and importance for talking about this or raising awareness or educating about obesity in dogs. The companion animal obesity has been called the number one nutritional disorder in dogs. Like in humans, canine obesity does arise from a complex web of genetic, behavioral, environmental, and social factors. So you can't just blame it on the free feeding. And studies like this one aim to guide vets towards a personalized weight management program that's more tailored to breed tendencies or the environment and playing on the owner awareness as well.
Mm-hmm.
So working in team to help your dog live its best life at the right size and weight.
And the biggest advice I can give is make sure one of your kids isn't giving them a second breakfast after you just give them a breakfast. That's a lot of calories for a dog.
Yeah.
A big old second breakfast. Though I'm sure Pippin and Mary would enjoy that.
Mm-hmm. Bernoulli too. You fed him supper, and then he looked at me, and he was standing by the fridge, and he looked at the fridge, and he looked at me, and he looked at the fridge because he knows that's where his food comes from, and he thought he could trick me.
Yep. Yeah, he loves food so much. They all do. Bunsen, Beaker, and Bernoulli, they're super food motivated.
That makes it easy to train. That makes them easy to train, because if they were husky and stubborn, although Bunsen is selective, it has to be a high value treat sometimes before he makes a choice sometimes to do things.
Yes, if the choice is particularly sucky for him. Yeah. Oh, hey, we're going to brush you. Here's some kibble. He's nope, that's not a good enough. If you have a peanut butter Kong, he's okay, maybe. It's got to be pretty high value for some things he doesn't like. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't like being brushed. Bernoulli loves it, though.
I know. He's so weird. He's like the weirdest. He's such an odd dog, and that's what makes him cool. All right, that's Pet Science for this week. That's it for this week's show. Thanks for coming back week after week to listen to the Science Podcast. And a shout out to all the top dogs. That's the top tier of our Patreon community, the Paw Pack. You can sign up in our show notes. All right, Chris, let's hear those names that are part of the top dogs.
Amelia Fettig, Ree Oda, Carol Hano, Jennifer Challen, Linnea Janik, Karen Cronister, Vicky Otero, Christy Walker, Sarah Bram, Wendy, Diane, Mason and Luke, Helen Chin, Elizabeth Bourgeois, Marianne McNally, Catherine Jordan, Shelley Smith, Laura Stephenson, Tracy Linebaugh, Anne Uchida, Heather Burback, Kelly, Tracy Halberg, Ben Rather, Debbie Anderson, Sandy Breimer, Mary Raider, Bianca Hyde, Andrew Lynn, Brenda Clark, Brianne Hawes, Peggy McKeel, Holly Burge, Kathy Zerker, Susan Wagner, and Liz Button.
For science, empathy, and cuteness.
Let's go adventure in the deep blue